Jake Paul. Want to talk about him in this video today, give you my perspective on him, because I think it's sort of a unique one. It's more of a, I think it's subjective, but we'll see what if you guys agree with that or not. So when you think of Jake Paul, if you guys don't follow his newfound boxing career, you might know him as the Disney Channel guy, a kid turned YouTube star. And really his YouTube content as a 35-year-old man, I can't say I've ever really watched it, but I've definitely seen clips, gone back and looked at some things. And basically what it seems like is that he was just a kid, you know, just out there doing whatever crazy thing he could think of to get some views. And you can't say that it didn't work in that regard, at least for the view part. And so, like, when we think of Jake Paul, generally speaking, we think we either hate him and then some people love him. You know, it's kind of, but the one thing you don't feel is indifferent. Most people, at least, generally speaking, you don't really feel indifferent. You either hate him or you love him, and you hate him for a multitude of reasons, and you love him. If you love him, you just maybe you like the bad guy kind of troll that's winning, and that's what Jake Paul is. So when you hate Jake, anytime there's a guy or girl that's a winner in every aspect essentially of life, or in most important aspects of life, to the public at least, people are going to hate that person, right? Jake is a guy that had he had 10 million YouTube subscribers in 2017. He's an OG, and him and his brother, I'm not crazy about Logan, but him and his brother in that regard are very much, you know, OGs of the vlog YouTube game. 10 million subs in 2017. He has a little bit over 20 million now. He might have like 22 million. I don't know. He's got over 20 million YouTube subscribers, okay? He is extremely popular on the interwebs. You know, I think he's got like at least, I don't know, maybe 20 million Instagram followers too. The dude is widely followed, okay? And so adults like myself, we didn't really know much about Jake Paul at that time in 2017. My wife told me something about the thing his brother was involved in Japan, and that was like the only thing I had ever heard of him back at that time. So when you look at it, right, what is Jake? He's a troll, he's a YouTube star, and now he's trying to convince adults, really, not so much his fan base, but he's trying to convince real adults that he's a professional level boxer. And so you've got the narrative now where it's like, dude, you've beaten no one. You're not shit. You're not a professional boxer. You're not on that level. You're just a decent YouTube guy, you know, that can box a little bit, right? And so when you look at it, right, his first fight was an exhibition match against, I think it was Gib is who the guy's name was. And he ends up TKOing Gib in the 5th round. It was a, you know, pretty amateur looking thing. And so there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. That was I think in 2018. And he had just started boxing and he won. So cool, good for him, he won. But apparently, according to Jake, after that happened, he basically fell in love with boxing. He didn't realize that he could knock people out. Sorry, I thought a little animal was running up on me. He didn't realize he could knock people out, and he enjoyed it when it happened, and so he wanted to take it more seriously. So where was it after that? So after Gib, it was about a year and a half later, he took on Nate Robinson on the Mike Tyson undercard. Okay, Nate Robinson, for those that don't know, he was a basketball player. He wasn't a great basketball player. He was good, though. He was a good player and a super athlete. Like, he was a shorter guy, but he could dunk. You know, he was in the dunk contest, I think it was. And so, like, he fights Nate Robinson, and actually, I believe before that fight, Nate was the favorite, just because they were like, hey, this dude's a real professional athlete. Jake is some YouTube Disney Channel kid, you know, and Nate will probably starch him. Well, as we all saw, poor Nate Robinson got made a meme out of, and Jake showed in that boxing match that, whoa, hold on, maybe he has some hands, right? Maybe he's got a decent, maybe he knows what he's doing just a little bit. Not that he's a high-level pro, but at that point, you know, even Joe Rogan came out and said, hey, man, he's moving backwards, knocking this dude out. And Nate was throwing crazy, like, sloppy punches at him, and Jake just very calmly stepped off to the side and clipped him or stepped backwards. He showed that he had at least some skills, right? After Nate came Ben Askren. Ben Askren, if you know him from MMA, no doubt one of the worst strikers in MMA history. However, a lot of people thought that Ben Askren would tie Jake up because Ben, no question, is a real fighter with a chin, right? People thought, hey, he's going to tie Jake up. He's going to eventually tire him out and then just put the volume on him. It might not look pretty, but Ben Askren's a real fighter. He can take a shot from Jake, and he's going to eventually wear him down and win. Chael Sonnen, every video Chael Sonnen made before that fight was, Jake Paul's coming to box, Ben Askren is coming to compete, therefore Ben Askren's going to win. It got to the point where the hype was so hard on Ben Askren, and I'm only reiterating this because I want you guys to remember, afterwards, what they said did not align with what people were saying before. Jake Paul was an underdog going into that fight. The day before, 100% he was an underdog. Not a huge underdog, but he was an underdog, right? So take that for what you will. He ends up obviously completely just doing whatever he wanted with Ben Askren, got him out of there in a round. Then it led to people saying, hey, this guy's a cheater. Ben Askren, he was going to the body, and then he came up top and clipped him, and it was it. So like, I thought, yes, the stoppage maybe was a little bit early, but the point was that wasn't going to get much better for Ben. As a matter of fact, it probably just saved Ben from becoming the next Nate Robinson in terms of memes, right? Because you saw the referee that ref the Nate Robinson fight, let him back up and probably won too many times. So anyways, from there, people were like, well, what about Tyron Woodley? And I remember, because I'm team MMA, by the way. Like I like Jake now, I respect him, but like during this time, I'm team MMA hardcore. I'm like, there's no way this guy will fight Tyron Woodley. No chance. That's what a lot of people thought. Nah, man, Tyron can actually throw hands. Even Ben Askren suggested, I'm not a very good boxer, but I bet you if he fights Tyron will beat him. Like that, then we'll see the real. So Jake says, I agree. Not only did he agree, but he was so confident going into the Tyron Woodley fight. I believe he told him to put his entire purse on the fight. He was trying to make a bet with Tyron, saying to put your purse on the line. He likes to do that to get in people's heads, but to me, it also showed Jake was not just a little confident. Jake was 100% confident that he was going to beat Tyron Woodley in a boxing match. And Tyron is a guy that knocked out Robbie Lawler for the welterweight championship. Was a guy that had knocked out many of MMA fighters in terms of, and good strikers as well. Like he beat Wonderboy Thompson, one of the greatest strikers to ever live in mixed martial arts, and he did so with a little bit of wrestling, yeah, but he also struck with him. So it wasn't like Tyron was someone that didn't have hands like Ben Askren. He certainly had hands, and if he touched you, he could put your lights out. Everybody knows that. Even still to this day, that is Tyron Woodley, and he hurt Jake in the first fight, but he just wasn't active enough, and Jake eked out a decision in the first one. I wouldn't say eked out, but he comfortably won a decision in the first fight. And then in the second fight, it was much more competitive. I actually thought Tyron was winning. Then all of a sudden, boom, Jake puts Tyron Woodley's complete lights out. Like it went good night. And then Joe Rogan after that made a very good observation that most people really should have listened to and still should listen to, which was that if there was some new up-and-coming boxer and we told you, hey, he put Tyron Woodley's lights out, you would be like, oh, so like this guy has real hype, like he must be a decent boxer. That's what anybody would have said, and if they tell you anything different, they're lying, right? So then what comes next is Anderson Silva. Granted, Anderson, 47-year-old Silva, is not in the prime of his career. However, just a year before, or maybe less than a year before, Anderson in a boxing match beat a former world champion, Chavez Jr. And he didn't just eke out a decision, he comfortably won. It ended up being a split decision, but it was in Mexico, and obviously the judging may or may not have been corrupt. Anderson won what most people believe to be a very comfortable decision, and it really got a lot of people talking like, wow, Anderson is a legit boxer. He looks like a pro out there. No chance Jake Paul will fight Anderson Silva, because he's his actual, because in MMA, Tyron Woodley fought in the 170-pound division, the welterweight division. Anderson Silva fought 185, and I believe he also fought in 205 at the 205-pound division as well. So people were like, yeah, he won't fight Anderson Silva. This is one of the greatest strikers to ever live. Yeah, he's old, but even at this age, he can still beat up Jake Paul. Then, even Dana White was like, Jake, and Jake used it in his promo brilliantly when he signed the Anderson Silva bout. Dana said he wouldn't fight Anderson. Well, Jake agrees to fight Anderson, and Jake is trying to bet, and he's just as confident going against Anderson Silva than he was against Tyron Woodley, and it had me thinking at that point, I'm like, no way this dude thinks, like, no way this dude really believes, no doubt about it, he's going to beat Anderson Silva. Like, he has no doubt in his mind, like, this guy's a legitimate striker, and he looked really good as a boxer against Chavez and Tito Ortiz, which obviously Tito's no boxer, but still. Yep, Jake goes in there, beats Anderson in the first round. Anderson, I think it was the second or third round, sort of came on strong, and it looked like Anderson was about to toy with Jake. Then, all of a sudden, Jake weathers the storm and outboxes Anderson Silva the rest of the way. I believe it was an 8-round fight. Jake won the 8th round with a knockdown too, I believe. So it was impressive. I mean, I was sitting there in the second or third round, and I'm like, Anderson's about to destroy this guy, because it really felt like that was what was happening. Not only did that not happen, Jake outboxed him. I would say he easily won it at least 5 rounds to 3. And if you were to take the 10-8 round in terms of the round he knocked him down, then you could say that it was an even larger discrepancy in terms of the score than that. But still, Jake completely outboxed Anderson Silva. Going into that fight, I thought Anderson will be outboxing him. The only thing I was worried about was maybe Jake will catch him with one of those big right hands, because we know Jake can hurt you. He's got real power. That was evident as early as the Nate Robinson fight. So that, that's where, and obviously in between this, we talked, Hasim Rahman Jr. fell out. I felt like Jake had some of the responsibility in that, but I'm not going to go to, whatever happened, who cares? And then also, of course, we've had back-to-back Tommy Fury pullouts. Well, now we've got Jake Paul. We're just, I think, 2 weeks away. Jake Paul, Tommy Fury. It looks like it's actually happening. Tommy is in Saudi Arabia, so unless some freakish, unexpected thing happens, it looks like we're going to finally get that fight. Now, Tommy's an undefeated professional boxer. Undefeated. He's the younger brother of Tyson Fury, for those that don't know. And Tommy, while he's not, nobody's saying he's going to be the next champion of the world. If this Jake Paul thing never happened, people would be talking about Tommy Fury as a potential contender, at least in some time, right? Sometime down the line. Well, when you look at, and this is going to sound a little bit crazy, but just like bear with me for a second, right? Jake Paul is on sort of this rise, and granted, he's not fighting the Canelos of the world yet, but he's definitely fighting. You look at Anderson Silva, even at 47 years old, he's fighting better fighters than any of the greats fought in their 4th, 5th fights, or whatever it's been, right? So, like, consider that. But my point is, Conor McGregor and guys like him, when they, Khamzat Chimaev for another one in MMA, when they get on these rises, right, and they're on their climb to the top, a lot of times it just feels as though they can't lose. And I know, again, not saying Jake is in that level in terms of the competition he's going against, but it's starting to feel, when you look back at what he's done so far, it's starting to feel like Jake is in a position where he can't lose. Like, as long as he doesn't go fight Canelo tomorrow, as long as he continues to rise his competition levels up, as he is, it just, to me, feels like he can't lose. He's supremely confident. He works, we know, he works his ass off. We're not going to have the problem that Conor McGregor's having, in the sense that Conor now just has too much money, and a lot of people think that Conor's not going to, not even going to try anymore, or just doesn't have the same fire. Jake's fire is burning deeper, even though he's got a whole bunch of money as well. So now we'll see Tommy Fury. If he goes and sparks Tommy Fury, which I think he's going to do, right, then you can't say that he didn't fight a real boxer thing, because Tommy is an undefeated pro boxer who just beat a decent contender. The guy was like 11-2 or something like that, and the guy actually presented some danger to Tommy. And I'm not talking about the exhibition one, I'm talking about the one before that. But in any case, if he goes out there and beats Tommy Fury, you start to wonder, okay, so what's next? If he fights Nate Diaz in a boxing match, he's going to beat him. I mean, I think we can all, sadly, I think we have to all agree with that. If he fought Conor McGregor in a boxing match, he's got the height advantage, the size advantage, the power advantage. He might beat, I can't even believe I'm saying this, but he might beat Conor McGregor in a boxing match right now. He might be I think he'd be the favorite going into that match. What if, and now, this is where you really got to hang on to your seat and bear with me, but what if Jake Paul, in the next, let's say 5 years, right? Because he's only been doing this for 3, 4, 5 years or whatever as it is, and maybe 3 years as a actual professional, quote unquote. If he goes out and continually upgrades his competition and continues to win and ends up knocking out Canelo Alvarez for a belt, what will we make of Jake Paul in terms of who he is as a boxer? Will we think, oh, he was a YouTube guy that got lucky and worked his way? Or will we have to just say, this Jake Paul guy, weirdly enough, and as weird as it sounds to say, is one of the greatest, at least one of the greatest stories to ever live in terms of a boxer who came into the game late and, you know, someone that no one expected, someone that talked so much trash, someone that was put subject to crazy hype fights as soon as he started boxing, and someone that basically became a champion of the world, and a legit one. Like, if he goes out and beats Canelo in 5 years from today or 3 years from today or something like that, what are you going to say then? Because I understand most people don't like him, right? And that's where it is now. But in my opinion, if he ends up beating someone on the level of a Canelo or a Bivol or whatever, whoever it is at the time that's champion, I personally will have to say he is a legitimate world-class boxer. And in terms of stories, right, because you go from mega famous superstar on the YouTube set to Disney Channel, all that, and then you go into beating world-class guys just a few years into your training, 5, 6, 7, 8 years into training, I think it will be one of the greatest stories ever told. And so from that sense, I'm always rooting for an underdog. And so from that sense, I am at this point basically rooting for Jake Paul. I want to see that. I want to see, that would be remarkable, and it would be a true testament to what self-belief combined with very, very hard, insane work ethic and obviously some natural gifts can get you if you're willing to put in the work and you're willing to believe in yourself and take a chance and be great, you know? Because every time Jake steps in the ring, he could be knocked the fuck out, right? Like, that's a definite possibility. So, anyways, I'm excited to see how this all unfolds, and I will talk to you guys after the Tommy Fury fight. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I'm betting the house on Jake as of now. All right, guys, subscribe if you're enjoying the content. I'll talk to you later. Peace.